Were you holding that in?
Yep. For a long time. I was like, holy shit, he's going on quite the rant right now. I didn't know how to signal for you to stop, but dear God. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Team Morale Podcast, where we do our three favorite things: talk a little bit of booze, a little bit of beer, and a whole lot of basketball. Ian, the tall guy, back with you again for another podcast. Mitch, how you doing today?
Oh, I am so good today, Ethan. You want to know why I'm so good today?
Because you quit your job and you got a new car?
Those are the main points as to why today is a good day. But another thing, our playing games are starting today, which is super fun. It's like the first real playing. We got a little teaser last year, but we really got into the playing games this year. It's really fun.
Yeah, we got our first look into what the future of the NBA kind of looks like tonight, because the playing games started. Yes, we had them last year, but they're a new format. It's more of a tournament style this year, and it's definitely changing the way the NBA operates.
Yeah, it really does. But before we do get into these playing games...
Oh, we're going early today. We're just getting right into it.
We're getting right into it.
I love it.
I'm excited about this one. So we are drinking Jefferson's Reserve. Very old. Capitalize the very old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Very, capitalized very, small batch. Got a lot of varies in the name on this one.
Yeah, and if you're a longtime OG listener, we did have Jefferson's on earlier in an earlier podcast. I could not tell you what number. I'm gonna guess in the early teens.
Yeah, probably somewhere around there.
But this is a different type of Jefferson's we're drinking today.
It is. So the first one that we drink is just called Jefferson Small Batch. That's kind of their entry level whiskey or bourbon. What we have here is Jefferson's Reserve. And so it is very old, as in they keep it in the barrels a couple extra years. It is a very small batch. They don't make a whole ton of them. These ones go for a little bit higher price. And, we're celebrating. We're celebrating tonight. I got a new car. I quit my job today, which is a good thing, actually, for me.
Yeah. Let's take a moment and let the fans in. What happened to you today, Mitch? Because today was a barn burner of a day.
Yeah, it was. Today I got to go in. I traded in my old faithful, my Jeep that has taken me across the country 5 times now, the Oregon to Texas trip, and was just getting a little high in the miles, and it wasn't turning on every time, which is a bad quality for a car to have.
It doesn't drive, which is what 90% of the car should do.
Yeah. So I got a new car today. Beautiful little Jeep Compass. Got to come up with a name for him. If anybody has car names, shout out to me. And then also I decided to go full time into the freelance market down here, doing the sports broadcasting freelance and jumping around from team to team. So I let my full-time job know that I'm going to be doing that. So very, very exciting day for Mitchell. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the plan. And I am also rocking my Team Morale t-shirt. It is just a banner day in the Davis household.
Absolute just craziness going on. Yeah,
Big day.
I got a phone call that had a lot of information in it today, ladies and gentlemen. I was like, oh, you did what? You did what? All right, let's ride.
All right, sweet.
And he's wearing his Team Morale t-shirt, so he's good to go. But let's get into this Jefferson's a little bit.
Yeah, so Jefferson's Whiskey, this is a little about them from their website. Founded in 1997, Jefferson's is the brainchild of Tyler Zeller and his father Chet, a famed bourbon historian. They were
Basketball player Tyler Zeller?
Trey Zeller.
That's upsetting.
Spelled differently. I wish it was like I wish it was like their fourth brother.
Heartbreak. If those OG NBA
the Zeller
brothers, the Zeller brothers are absolute just staple in the NBA. There's been a Zeller in the NBA for
a long time.
I would say decades.
Because there's 3 of them. There's 3 different Zeller brothers, but they were continuing a family whiskey tradition that goes back Trey's 8th generation grandmother, who was arrested in 1799 for the production and sales of spirituous liquors. His curious and experimental mindset has allowed him to push the boundaries of bourbon whiskey, upholding tradition, and yet always discovers new possibilities. Now, a fun thing about Jefferson's, and at some point we are definitely going to be trying this out, they have an aged at sea whiskey, which they put in barrels in ships, and the ship just travels around the ocean, right? Well, they actually got into it because of a thing called O-Search, like Ocean O-Search, and this Jefferson's, they put a lot of money into researching the ocean and cleaning up the ocean and preserving the ocean, and that's what actually got them into the idea of putting the bourbon into those casks that are sitting in ships across the sea right now.
Yeah, I vaguely remember doing our first podcast with Jefferson's and us talking about being like whiskey pirates, and that thought in mind has not changed.
Whiskey pirates.
I want to be a whiskey pirate.
That's why I quit my job. I'm going full time into whiskey pirate business.
I'm going whiskey pirating. Mom and Dad, I'll see you later.
Mom, Dad's I think it's been a good run, but I think it's time that I pursue my dream of being
my true passion of being whiskey and pirating and putting them together.
Oh, yes. But very, very interesting story. They are relatively new, started in 1997, but they have really blown up. They're in shelves all across the country, and they have 3 very famous bottles with the small batch, the reserve, and the aged at sea. You can find almost at any liquor store.
Yeah, and we are drinking the small batch reserved.
Yes.
So we are drinking the middle one.
This is the middle tier. Still very good.
Very good. We'll get into the taste a little bit later, but we've got the first batch of quote unquote kind of playoff basketball today.
Yeah.
So we got to talk that.
Yeah. So we're not in the regular season. We're kind of not in the playoffs. I don't know. They're like game 7s, they're win or go home kind of games, which is very fun. Everyone loves a good game 7. But what happened today is the 10-seeded Hornets played the 9-seeded Pacers. In that game, the Pacers just absolutely destroyed the Hornets. The Hornets.
Before we get into that, though, let's break down what exactly is the play-in tournament.
Okay, so the play-in tournament is getting into the playoffs, right? And so they have added this year.
In a normal year, seeds 1 through 8 of each conference go to the playoffs.
They are in the playoffs.
8 plays 1, 2 plays 7, and so on and so forth. This year, they're doing it a little bit differently.
Yes, and we got a little tease of it last year in the bubble. We got our first play-in game with the Blazers and the Grizzlies, and at that point, it was the 8 seed versus the 9 seed, and they played 2 games. The 8 seed only had to win 1 to advance. They kind of went on that premise and expanded on it this year. Now it's 7 through 10. The 7 and 8 teams, they're going to play each other. The 7, 8 play each other, and 9, 10, they play each other. The winner of the 9, 10 plays against the loser of the 7, 8. 7, 8 teams, they play each other. The winner automatically is the 7 seed. Now you're playing for the 8 seed between the winner of the 9, 10 and the loser of the 7, 8. And this is what's going to create the final, the ending of our playoff brackets, to create this 7 and 8 seed and who's going to play the 1 and 2 seed going into the playoffs.
Confused? We are too.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot. If you need to look up some sort of photo, they have charts and brackets that kind of explain it very well.
Break it down.
But today we had the Eastern Conference version of night 1 of the play-in tournament.
Yes, and so night 1 is the first 2 games. It's the 7, 8 seed play each other, and the 9 and the 10 seed. I'm sorry, my numbers are getting all jumbled up in my head. 9 and 10 played each other, and that was the Pacers and the Hornets. And in that game, the Pacers just absolutely ran away with it.
Yeah, they were up 30 before anything even happened. They ended up winning the game 144 to 117. They dropped almost 150 points on the Hornets.
It was one of those things where the Hornets came out very, very flat, and the Pacers, but mainly our good old friend Dougie McBuckets, just was absolutely on fire to start the game off.
Scorching first quarter, to say
5 for 6 from 3. Had 15 points after the first or something like that.
He ended up with 16 in the first frame, which is very impressive. He ended on with 21 for the night. Played really well. It was a classic team with veterans. When I'm talking about the Pacers, you have Brogdon, you have Sabonis, who have been around, who have been in playoff series before, going up against a young team in the Hornets who just, the stage almost looked too big for them. Each player, we watched the game, and each player looked like they were trying to do too much hero ball. There's not a lot of ball movement. It was just a lot of players that just hadn't been in that situation before.
Yeah, and it's tough when you just start out in a hole like that. When you come out into this really big game, it's a win or go home game. When you're the Hornets, you kind of thought that you were going to be in the playoffs only a week ago. You were fighting for the 6, 7, 8 seed, and then all of a sudden you dropped all the way down to 10 there on the last night of the regular season. and you're sitting around, you're like, okay, we got this. But they came into the game already slumping. They didn't have what I would argue their most veteran player in Gordon Hayward, who I think would have been a very steadying presence for them out on the court tonight, because you're right. It looked like a lot of hero ball. It looked like a lot of guys trying to take it upon themselves, which isn't how the Hornets played all year. The Hornets very much were like a good overall team that played good team basketball, and they were kind of average on defense, but their offense could really pop on some games. They could really take anyone by surprise, and they just really came out flat into a Pacers team which has a lot of vets like Sabonis and Brogdon, and it's hard to come back in that situation.
Yeah, again, you're a Pacer team who had been there, done that, had not necessarily won a playoff series before, but you had been in big moments before, and you've had players that have played in big moments. You have players that have played on good teams. You've had some veterans who have been in the NBA for a long time. And when you look at the Hornets, guys that played on it, other than Terry Rozier, there's not a lot of veterans who have been in big moments. I mean, Cody Zeller had been around for a long time, but again, not on good teams. And when Terry Rozier came out of the gate and struggled, he started 0 for 6. I mean, that just kind of set the tone for the whole team, and everyone kind of looked at him and was like, all right, like, if you're not hitting, I've got to be the hero. Mm-hmm. And everyone kind of took it upon themselves to almost just will their team out of this early deficit. But when they, by individually willing themselves, they kind of just played hero ball and couldn't pass. They missed a lot of open shots. Their defense was horrendous tonight.
Yeah, and when you're in a situation like that, it leads to more bad shots. Instead of running your offense, taking your time, getting the good shot, you're doing that isolation ball, and you're trying. I mean, just looking at their field goals, P.J. Washington 3 for 10, LaMelo Ball 4 for 14, Terry Rozier 7 for 20, 0 for 9 from 3, Devontae Graham 1 for 8, 1 of 7 for 3. It's just it's tough when you start off as slow as you do, and like a guy like McDermott, who can catch fire at any point, does, and already gives you a 20-point lead coming out of the first quarter, and then you're playing catch-up the entire time. So it was a tough situation for the Hornets. They had a good season, though.
Yeah, you look at the Hornets season. If you're a Hornets fan, you look at this and you're like, did you really expect to be where you were at this? Like, a lot of Hornets fans were like, all right, we got a piece. Let's tank again, and let's get another one. Mm-hmm. Well, this team showed that they can compete. They were, 2 games out at the last game of the year. They were playing the Wizards, and it was a winner gets 8, loser goes to 10 because of the way the tiebreakers.
It was working out, yeah.
And so they were 2 games away from being like a lock in the 8th seed, or they played competitive basketball this year. So if you're a Hornets fan, you do not hang your head this year. You are very happy with the progress. You guys have been irrelevant for a long time, and you actually have the building blocks to be relevant and to be a steady playoff team in the East. Absolutely.
I mean, they were fighting around the 4 seed for a big part of the season, and it felt like they were in that Knicks Hawks territory, fighting there over in 4. They slumped down the stretch, and it's a bad time to start losing basketball games. And when you lose that first game to the Wizards, you already start questioning yourself. But I want to go to the Pacers side. I'm really proud of the Pacers.
Yeah, if you're the Pacers, you are over the moon, because you went into this game with a ton of injuries.
Yeah, shorthanded.
Miles Turner didn't play. Karis LeVert didn't play. I mean, Sabonis had been hobbled a lot.
No TJ Warren or Jeremy Lamb, who've been out for a while, but still.
And then Malcolm Brogdon had just recently come back and just started playing, back into the swing basketball again. So like, you guys have been hit by the injury bug hard. And don't get me wrong, this was an easy game for you guys to win because the Hornets played that terrible. But I mean, hey, you won a very important basketball game. You can't call it a playoff game, but you can't call it a regular season game. It's this middle, like, you won a play-in tournament game. You won the first play-in tournament game of the format that's going to be going forward, and that's huge for this franchise because they were down and out this year. This team totally underperformed expectations, and they kept the dream alive today.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had struggles. The coach never really seemed to, I don't know, get the energy of his team. Really, never got kind of rallied the troops sort of thing. You even saw it when. It was only like a week or two ago when Goga Bitadze hits a 3 and starts screaming at his coach, and players have hold his coach back from running out onto the floor. It seemed like there was definitely some turmoil going on in the locker room. You battled injuries all year. You never really were a full squad. But you did have Sabonis ended up making the All-Star game. That was a big plus for you. You did end up winning this game, so you have a chance to get back into the playoffs and get a little bit going for you. But overall, kind of disappointing if you're a Pacers fan, just the situation that you're in right now overall.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the 9-10 seed
If you're the Pacers.
game if you're the Pacers.
You think that you should be a 4 seed type of thing.
Exactly. You should be higher up, but you're not. You're in where you're at. They won the game that was in front of them, even without Miles Turner, Karis LeVert, without a really good offensive performance from Sabonis today. Struggled from the field. I mean, he ended up with a decent field goal percentage, but I mean, I think he ended up 7 for 15 with only 14 points, which is, not what you want from your all-star, but he did come up with 21 huge rebounds and 9 big assists. So he did have a good all-around game, but you really kind of wanted more from him on the offensive end. They're going to need more for him on the offensive end if they're going to win the next game. But yes, so with this game finishing up, the Pacers move on to play the loser of the Celtics-Wizards game.
Which was the Wizards.
And then the Hornets were eliminated from playoff contention.
The Wizards the Hornets are officially done.
The Hornets are done.
Hornets are officially done. Now, the Celtics-Wizard game just wrapped up.
Literally about 30 seconds ago.
Yep. And the Celtics did take care of business. The Wizards was a very, very popular upset pick in this. Upset as in the Celtics were the 7th seed and the Wizards were the 8th seed. But the Wizards came into this just blazing hot. Russ is really hitting his stride. It's unfortunate that Beal is hobbled and he's not really playing at his peak, but the Wizards as a whole are playing really well going into this game.
Yeah, they were playing really good basketball. Again, Beal struggling with that hamstring that just kind of hobbled him the last month or so of the season, but Russ playing very good basketball. Hachimura having a career year. Davis Bertans actually learning how to shoot the basketball, which is what they paid him to do this offseason, which is cool.
Relearning.
So, yes, they were playing really good basketball towards the end of the year, but not the greatest tonight, especially against a Celtics team who had a plethora of injuries.
Yeah, dude, the Wizards had a rough night shooting from 3. Here's what it comes down to is Beal was 1 for 6, Westbrook was 0 for 4, Raul Neto was 0 for 1, Bertans was 0 for 7, and that's it. You have Ish Smith who made 1 and Garrison Matthews that hit 1. They just could not shoot at all. And it's almost like the Hornets. It's like when you're just cold, like you're not going to win a game, and this is a bad time to go cold.
Yeah, well, and again, this team is I love the way the Wizards roster is constructed on paper. It makes so much sense. But when it comes to practice, I mean, they need Davis Bertans to be able to hit threes. He is so vital. That's why they paid him so much money. But when you have Russ and you have Beal creating so much and having the ball so much and driving and kicking so much, you need a sniper on the outside. And that's what they paid Bertans to do. And he has just not done that this year.
No, he's not. You're going to give him a fat contract extension, and he just struggled all season long. I think another mistake that they had going into the game was starting Alex Len instead of Lopez. Like down the stretch, they were really relying on Lopez because he was playing much better, which, I mean, I would kind of expect Lopez to be better in a situation like this. Alex Len hasn't even sniffed playoff basketball, and Robin Lopez has kind of been there with several different teams over the course of his career, and you could use a little veteranship with that team. It was a tough game for the Wizards to lose, especially when everyone was picking you as a popular upset bid. But the Celtics really went out and took care of business tonight.
And by the Celtics, we mean Jason Tatum, who ended with 50 points tonight, I think. Played a very, very good game. He had 41 after 3. I think he ended with 50.
Yep.
Just an insane game. A game where Marcus Smart went down with a turned ankle. Robert Williams went down with a turned ankle. Like, they had so many injured. Jaylen Brown didn't even play in this game because he's out for the rest of the year. I mean, they have had the deck stacked against them. And they came out and won a very, very important basketball game against one of the hottest teams in the NBA.
Yeah, so Tatum ended up with that 50, 8 boards and 4 assists. Dude was 17 for 17 from the free throw line. So really took care of business, getting to the rack, getting fouled, stopping the game, slowing it down, and knocking down your free throws. Always very important inside of these one game elimination games.
Especially come playoff basketball, him being able to knock down free throws and get there and get to the line is very important.
Yeah. And I think it's Jaylen Brown's out for the season, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
With the wrist.
So it's up to Tatum now. So the Celtics are sitting at the 7 seed, which means they have the Nets.
If you're the Nets, are you worried at all or not really?
If you're the Nets, you're probably not too worried.
I'm not worried if I'm the Nets.
Because
I'm not super worried.
I think that you're already overly confident if you're the Nets. You have so much talent going in to any. I don't think that there's a single series where the Nets are going into it and they're like, oh my God, this is a bad matchup for us, because they have a lot of really interesting players that you can play a lot of different styles and match up with. Now, what could be interesting is if Tatum continues this streak, almost like earlier in the season, what was it, like a month ago, where Tatum came back from injury and the dude was putting up like near 50 points a game for like a week or two. Now, if he's going out and he's playing like that, that's going to make this series very, very interesting. But the Nets is just, they're so hard to defend. And the Celtics aren't necessarily known for their defense right now.
Yeah, and if I would say there is a weakness within the Nets, it's going up against a very strong, powerful, game-changing big man. And the Celtics are rolling out a big man rotation of Luke Cornett and Robert Williams at this point.
Some Tristan Thompson.
Maybe some Tristan Thompson sprinkled in, but that doesn't scare me unless you're Khloe Kardashian's ex or whatever.
Yeah, dude. I don't think I'm necessarily scared. I think that it's going to be the popular theory that the Nets are just going to go and take care of business here. I don't know if it's going to be a sweep. My guess is that the Celtics probably go and pull out a game. They have enough talent to go
Tatum's
and get a game.
good enough to get you one.
Yeah, good enough to get you one game. But if I'm the Nets, I'm actually kind of happy. I don't know if I wanted to face a really, really intense Russell Westbrook who has I'm a little sad that honestly that the Wizards didn't win, because it would have been so much fun to watch Russell Westbrook go up against Harden and Durant, like just for like storyline's sake. And you know that he's going to give it 150% like he does every single game, but there would have been added intensity, because you want to go and show up the two guys that like kind of left you when you're on the Thunder, and he was like the last guy standing on that team at that point. So that would have been really fun. So I was rooting for the Wizards going into it, but with the Celtics, I think that the Nets take care of them fairly easily, and actually is going to be a good thing for them to get their footing with each other, because those three, the Harden, Kyrie, Durant, haven't played a lot together. I think this is a good team for them to kind of like get their footing going into the harder rounds.
If you're the Nets, this is the best matchup you could have gotten.
I think so.
I think this is the best matchup you wanted. If you're the 76ers, who are going to be playing the winner of the Pacers-Wizards, is there a particular team you're wanting?
I am probably wanting the Wizards if I'm the Sixers. And I say that because your biggest asset if you're the Sixers is Joel Embiid. And the guy who's going to take you to the championship is going to be Joel Embiid. And if you're getting the first round and you're playing against Alex Len and Robin Lopez, you're just going to be absolutely feasting on them the entire time. If you're playing against the Pacers, you're going to be playing Sabonis, and you're going to be the chance of getting a healthy Turner coming back at some point. So it's going to be a little bit harder. I think the Sixers still take care of business either way, but the team I would want to play going into it is the Wizards because of the Joel Embiid thing, and Ben Simmons is a great guy to throw out on Westbrook.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I mean, if you're the Sixers, your strength is your front court and your big man in Joel Embiid, who's an MVP candidate. And if you can put him up against two guys that are probably not starters on many other basketball teams other than the Wizards, like Alex Len was out of the NBA for a good chunk of this year. Mm-hmm. He's their starting center. Like, if you're Embiid, you're like, cool, I'll average 50 a game. Thanks.
Yeah. Teriyaki chicken right there.
Not barbecue chicken, teriyaki chicken.
Teriyaki chicken.
All right, so he's not quite Shaq.
Exactly. He's got to have his own thing, right?
Yeah.
He's getting the teriyaki chicken instead of the barbecue chicken.
That is funny.
I actually remember Shaq at one point talking about Dwight Howard playing Robin Lopez back in the day, and that's when he started doing the barbecue chicken was against Robin Lopez.
Oh, he's about to do teriyaki chicken against Robin Lopez again if they win. That kind of just wraps us up on the East. I mean, I think that kind of explains where we're at in the East. It'll be interesting to see come Thursday whether the Wizards, the Pacers pull it out. It'll be an interesting game. I don't think the East has anywhere close to as much intrigue as what's going on in the West, however. But before we get into that, let's revisit this Jefferson's and kind of talk taste a little bit.
Dude, I am enjoying this so much.
Yes,
I really am.
Super smooth and just like kind of delightful.
This has got to be one of the best casual drinking whiskeys we've had on the podcast so far. As far as in when I'm like drinking these whiskeys, yeah, I'll take the rest of that. Hook me up. When we're drinking these whiskeys, I'm like either like trying to like go through the burn, trying to find the flavors, or I'm really trying to like dissect the flavors or whatever. I found myself with this whiskey just casually just sipping it and not even thinking about it because it goes down so smooth.
Yeah, you sip and you just kind of enjoy. I don't want to say not a lot of flavor, but there's not like a prevalent flavor that's hitting me in the face, which is normally with what I get with a lot of whiskeys. You get hit with like one thing and you're like, holy cow, that is like, this is a vanilla whiskey. This is a honey whiskey. This is a, spicy whiskey. This one's kind of like just a beautiful blend of a lot of different flavors.
Yeah, because I definitely get like hints of the wheat. When you first sip of it, you get a little hints of the wheat. I'm getting a little bit of lighter fruit flavors, kind of like cherry. I get a little bit of cherry out of it. And then on the aftertaste, that's when I start getting a little bit of the spices that they have in it. It's like, I'm not like when you like sip it, you kind of have a taste on the front of your tongue. You kind of have a taste on the back of your tongue. You kind of have a taste when you're swallowing it. And it's after I swallow it, I finally start getting a little bit of like what the burn is supposed to be, but like those like spices that they put in it. And it's a very interesting blend.
Yeah, it's just so smooth and like you said, there's a lot of different flavors in there, but they are blended together almost like effortlessly.
Mm-hmm.
It normally you're or not normally, but like your palate doesn't necessarily have to like try to get each one of these. You're just kind of taken on the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. We did put a couple of ice cubes in it to start off with, and we're already out of the bottle, so I would have liked to have a little bit without the ice cubes, because I think the ice cubes it already starts out so smooth. So I don't know if this is one of those that you need to put ice cubes. This would be a good one with like whiskey rocks sort of thing.
Full disclosure, we have had this bottle for a while, and we have been drinking this one for quite some time. So we've developed quite a good palate with it, and we've had a lot of time talking through the flavors of this one, which is why I think we're well versed in the flavors of this one, which is, you hit the nail on the head with each one of those. You taste the wheat, you taste the spice, you taste a little bit of vanilla, but it's all blended together so easily. And it's smooth, yet it's got that bite that you kind of want in a whiskey.
Yes.
You don't want to be just drinking just straight smoothness all the time. So, you got that bite. You've got just so many depths of flavors. You could tell that it's a step up from the other Jeffersons, and it's a step up from a lot of the whiskeys we've had on this podcast so far.
Absolutely. I would put this in kind of our top echelon of whiskeys that we have had so far. Very, very good.
It's on the Mount Rushmore of Team Morale whiskeys so far.
Yeah, we need to do a Mount Rushmore at some point. Jefferson's Reserve, very old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, very small batch. Go ahead and try it out, you guys. Very good.
Yeah, very, very good. Let's get into the West a little bit, though. We're going to end on the premier matchup, which I think everyone knows what we're talking about when it comes to the Lakers versus the Warriors. So we'll break down that matchup. These games are happening tomorrow, which will be the day you guys are hearing this podcast. But the first game that's going to be happening tomorrow is the Memphis Grizzlies versus the San Antonio Spurs, which is a very interesting matchup in and of itself. It doesn't have the same sexiness or sex appeal or, star power of Warriors Lakers, but it's still a very important matchup.
Yeah, very important. So the Grizzlies are the 9 seed, Spurs are the 10 seed. It's crazy in the West. Like, let's see, the Spurs came in at 33 and 39. The only team in the West that's in these games that came under 500. The Grizzlies came in at 38 and 34, which, for reference, would have been good enough for the 7 seed in the Eastern Conference. Grizzlies are a very good basketball team.
They are probably one of the deepest basketball teams in the NBA. They don't play bad players. And I know everyone in the NBA is good, but like, they don't play bad NBA players.
No.
Which not a lot of teams in the NBA can say.
And it's kind of funny that they've taken that identity on, because a very famous podcaster named Chris Vernon, one of his big sayings is, if you want to be a good basketball team, don't play players that suck. I mean, that just kind of happens on a lot of teams where you're playing a guy who in theory should be good, but actually when he's out there isn't very good. The Grizzlies are the epitome of, they don't play any players that suck. Everyone that's out there is putting in quality minutes.
They don't have a player on their rotation that you look at and is like, what did you contribute today?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody in their rotation has their role, plays well in their role, fits their role. And this team just is like 2 or 3 years away from being very dangerous. They just kind of need to, like, it's like a new stew. You just gotta kind of let it all meld together. Let all the flavors kind of get going. Everything get going a little bit. Everything kind of mush together, and everything will be good. All the players just all their players just need to get used to playing with each other and get a little bit more maturity, and this team will be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Grizzlies actually own the series over the Spurs 2-1, and all 3 of the games were blowouts. Every single one of them. All of them were like 15 to 20 point blowouts. The Grizzlies won the last game by 30. So I'm not really expecting a close game in this one, and I could see the Spurs winning. The Spurs are a very good team as well.
The Spurs have the all-important veteranness over the Grizzlies, whereas like they have DeMar DeRozan, they have Patty Mills, they have Rudy Gay, they have Pop.
Yep.
They have a lot of players, plus the best coach in the NBA, who have been there, done that, played in big games. The big lights, the must-winness of this game isn't going to spook them, whereas like the Grizzlies is brand new.
Yeah.
So by no means are the Grizzlies going to walk away with this. Are the Grizzlies the better team? Yes, 100%. I don't think Spurs fans would disagree with me when I say that.
Yeah.
But you got to suit up and play the game, and in a must-win game, anything can happen.
It's kind of like March Madness. We're in a 1-game elimination tournament here with these playing games, and yeah, anything can happen, especially when you have your best players being vets on the Spurs, like a guy like DeMar DeRozan, where the best players on the Grizzlies are very young guys like Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant. One interesting wrinkle is that the only team going into these playing games that actually has experience with the playing games is the Grizzlies. Because the Grizzlies played the Blazers last year in the first iteration of the playing game during the bubble. And so they have been in this situation. They lost last year to the Blazers and then got eliminated for it. It's going to be interesting to see if that at all, like, kind of they can show the little bit of the experience of what it's like to be in this 1-game elimination and learn from what they had mistakes last year. They didn't have Jaren Jackson at the end of the bubble last year. They didn't have Jaren Jackson for all of the season pretty much this year. They brought him back. He started off playing on the bench for the first couple of games, and that was a failed experiment. They started putting him in the starting lineup there at the tail end, last like 5 games, and it started to come back around. So they're not like a fully formed team right now. They're still kind of experimenting with Jaren, but it's going to be very, very interesting what the Grizzlies look like going into the game tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The matchups here are just very intriguing. I mean, you have the matchup of Ja, who's one of the best young point guards in the NBA, versus DeJounte Murray, who's one of the best guard defenders in the NBA right now. You have Jaren Jackson, who's coming back from injury, and how is he going to fit? You have DeMar DeRozan, and he has made it clear that he doesn't want to stay in the Western Conference, so this might be his last game in a Spurs uniform. And how does he end his Spurs career? You have the all-encompassing, the all-knowing Pop on the Spurs side, and what wrinkles does he throw into the mix? Because Pop's always going to have something
up his sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, you have Jakob Poeltl versus Jonas Valanciunas, 2 foreign big men who are going to be banging down low. There's a lot of intrigue in this game.
A lot of intrigue. I think when it comes to mismatches, the Grizzlies have a big mismatch when it comes to big men. They're throwing out Val, they're throwing out Jaren Jackson, they're throwing out Brandon Clark, and they're throwing out Xavier Tillman, who has had a very sneaky good season this year. While the Spurs, they're throwing out Jakob Poeltl, and that's kind of the only center. They do have Gorgie Jang. Gorgie Jang plays a little bit, but he's mainly a trash minutes kind of guy. they played DeRozan pretty much at the power forward when they roll Keldon Johnson out at center. So I could see the big men taking advantage of the Spurs, but if Ja doesn't play well, I could see it because DeJounte Murray is one of the best defensive guards in the entire league. He could shut down Ja, and that could be the end of the Grizzlies.
Yeah, the Grizzlies go as far as Ja will take them. I mean, their offense kind of revolves around Ja doing good things and creating stuff for other players, because if there is a weakness on this team, there's not a lot of secondary creation for other players when Ja doesn't have the ball. Like, he's a good driving kick guy. Dylan Brooks, their shooting guard, can definitely create his own shot, but he's not going to go create a shot from somebody else.
He's one of those guys where as soon as he touches the ball, you kind of assume that he's just putting it up.
He's shooting it, and he'll make them. He's a good shooter, and he's a good player, but he's not going to drive and kick. He's not going to run a pick and roll and dime it off to somebody else. I mean, so if Ja gets hindered by the defensive abilities of DeJounte Murray, where do they go there? They can go to a lot of other players, but their offense doesn't necessarily help or doesn't necessarily run very smoothly when Ja isn't playing well. One of the big things they do have going for them, though, is in my opinion, the most underrated player in the NBA, which is Jonas Valanciunas, their center, is balling this year. He's third in the league in rebounds. I think he might be first in offensive rebounds per game. The guy feasts on the offensive boards. He's averaging in the double figures for points and rebounds. So he's a double digit points per game and rebounds per game machine. He's a double guy.
17 points and 12.5 rebounds per game on 59% field goal percent shooting, and I think it shows offensive rebounds. Damn you, this one's not showing offensive rebounds. Let me look it up.
Okay,
it's a lot.
Well, while he does that, the Spurs have Jakob Poeltl that they can throw at Valanciunas, but that doesn't necessarily mean that when Jakob Poeltl comes out of the game, they have a backup big, because they don't. And they run DeMar DeRozan, who's a former shooting guard, at their power forward position. So the Spurs go small ball, and the Grizzlies start 2 7-footers. So the matchup there, the two big guys versus the Spurs small ball, is going to be very interesting to see where they end up and who ends up taking the advantage of it, because the Grizzlies are going to be winning on the rebounds, aspect, just because they're bigger. But the Spurs are going to have the fast break points, the quickness of foot. They're going to be quicker, and it's not David versus Goliath, but think of the big versus the small matchup, the classic speed versus strength.
Yeah. Valanciunas, by the way, is averaging 4.1 offensive rebounds a game, which is absurd.
Which is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. If you're getting if any guy gets 4 in one game, that's really good. Yes, I agree. I think that my guess is that they throw Dylan Brooks, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league right now, out on DeRozan and see if they can just shut down DeRozan. But this is going to be a really interesting game. But I could see this being a blowout either way, because both teams can be vulnerable. They both come out flat every once in a while.
Yeah, both teams can struggle. They can struggle offensively. Both teams don't necessarily shoot the 3 ball very well, which can lead to big issues. But also when they're hitting, that means, just like in any team in the NBA, when you're hitting your threes, you can beat just about anybody.
Yes.
And speaking of hitting threes, let's move on to our next matchup here, because we have the best 3-point shooter in the NBA history going up against a guy who's on the Mount Rushmore of the NBA.
Are you talking about Dennis Schroeder?
This is the part where you... God damn it. We can't have nice things, can we?
No, we cannot.
I just served it to you on a silver platter.
Yes, you did. Yes, so the Warriors versus the Lakers is going to be... It is the play-in game that everyone is talking about right now. No, everyone's all the diehard fans we are. I'm so excited for the Pacers Hornets. That's going to be fun. Oh, the Grizzlies Spurs. There's a bunch of fun matchups in that. But all of the generic NBA fans that even are slightly interested, this is the game that they're watching. The Lakers versus the Warriors, because of the LeBron Steph thing, which we have seen in the finals, and now we're watching in this weird 7-8 play-in game for some reason.
Yeah, if you're the NBA, you are over the moon at this matchup. You are so happy. Hats off to you, Adam Silver. You did it. This is the most intrigue. Honestly, maybe the most the game with the most on the line in NBA history that's not a Game 7.
Yeah.
The biggest non-Game 7 game in NBA history. How about that?
I'd be willing to bet that this is like the first iteration of the playing games, right? This might be one of the most watched playing games that we ever see.
Yeah.
When you have guys like LeBron and Steph Curry playing against each other, that's going to draw eyeballs. And I have a hard time believing that there's ever going to be a 7 and an 8 team that are
The
as
reigning champs
star-studded.
versus the scoring champion.
Yeah, the reigning champ versus the old regime champ with the Warriors and Steph Curry is like
Who's having a revitalization of his career, who's leading the league in scoring. It's like there's so many storylines to this.
Oh yeah. And you know what's kind of funny that I did not see until earlier today, and there was a post on Instagram, and they're going over who are the top 5 rebounders, who are the top 5 assist guys, who are the top 5 point guys. Draymond Green is the number 3 leader in assists per game at 8.9 assists per game.
That's wild.
How weird is that? I did not realize that Draymond Green was averaging this many assists, especially thinking like this is probably a team that he needs to score a little bit more on because they're lacking in the scoring section because it's pretty much Steph and then some guys out there. It's going to be so much fun to watch this game. It's even hard to assume what's going to happen because we haven't seen LeBron play in a while. We know what the Warriors look like, and the Warriors look like a team that can go out there and put up 150 points, and if Steph isn't playing well, they could put up 80 and lose by 40. You know what I mean? It's like it's impossible to kind of guess what's going to happen here.
Yeah, it's if you're a Warriors fan, you are excited at the opportunity, but you are terrified because if Steph isn't special, if Steph isn't the best player on the court tomorrow night, and again, you guys are seeing this tomorrow, so tonight, you guys might lose by 50 points.
Yeah.
You guys might get embarrassed on national television because if Steph isn't the best player on the court by a lot, like Steph could still be the best player, but they still have LeBron and AD, and you guys could still lose by 30. You know, Steph could put up 50, but I mean, there's no one else on that team that can really do anything.
No,
I mean,
Draymond
Draymond can
Wiggins
create for others, and Wiggins can maybe chip in 15 to 20 if he's playing well.
Yeah, I mean, Wiggins, you need to be around the 20-point mark. Steph, you need to be in the 35 to 40-point mark. You need
at least.
And if I'm a betting man, Draymond Green guards Anthony Davis. I think that they put Draymond on Anthony Davis, and I bet that they swap around Wiggins and Oubre on LeBron. Oh, Oubre's actually hurt, I think, right now. So they're going to do Wiggins probably on LeBron, throw a little Toscano Anderson, maybe throw a little Draymond every once in a while on Kent Bazemore. LeBron is going to be, obviously, as he always is, the difference maker in this game. If LeBron comes back and is just doing LeBron things as LeBron has showed his entire career, they're going to win this basketball game. But if he comes back slow, if he comes back a little bit hobbled because he had that rolled ankle the other day. Yeah, he's got a soft ankle right now, which as a guy that's had ankle injuries, you're thinking about it. Every single time you cut, every single time you jump, you have that ankle on your mind. And LeBron has been notoriously healthy his entire career. He's now getting older and his body's failing him a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see if he slows himself down even a little bit in this game, because if he does and Steph pops, that's how the Warriors sneak up and beat him.
Yeah, that is how they win. Weird stat that I saw today involving LeBron. With the NBA season ending yesterday, he has averaged 25 points per game or more in 17 straight years.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's wild.
That just to show how healthy he's been and how he has not had a bad year in almost 2 decades.
Yeah. 2 decades.
2 decades. What were you doing 17 years ago, listeners? Please tell me.
Well, I was 10, and I think I was still learning how numbers worked, learning the maths, and LeBron was out there putting 25 points a game up in the NBA.
Yeah, I was 7.
Wow.
I was 7 years old the last time
pretty much
LeBron
pooping your pants still.
didn't score 25 points per game in the NBA. But yes, going back to this matchup, it's must-watch TV. All of our eyes will be glued to the television. It'll be interesting to see where everything shakes out. But yes, if you're the Warriors fan, you are itching at the opportunity because if Steph goes off, you guys could beat anybody. But if Steph doesn't, you guys could lose by a lot tomorrow. Tomorrow could it's feast or famine for Warriors.
Yeah, it could go ugly tomorrow for the Warriors, or this could be an absolute electric game where it's going to come down the end and we're going to see a Steph versus LeBron again, and it's just going to be
iconic matchup that's going up into the shelf of great matchups between the two of them.
Yeah, probably one of if this could be one of the all-time great play-in games that we ever see, and my guess is that the play-in game continues to be a thing going forward, or this could be an absolute utter blowout.
And keep in mind, the loser of the Lakers-Warriors game is not eliminated.
No, they are not.
They are not done. So if the Warriors lose or the Lakers lose, they will end up playing the winner of the San Antonio Grizzlies game. But just the must-winness of this game tomorrow is what's drawing everyone's attention to it.
Yeah. And real quick, if you're like the Jazz and the Suns right now, you're sitting at 1 and 2. Both of you have overachieved. Both of you have had tremendous seasons, really figured out who you are as teams, played amazing in a loaded Western Conference, and now you're sitting here thinking we could get the Lakers or we could get the Warriors. Is there, obviously the Lakers are probably a team you don't want to see, right? But if it's between, say, the Warriors or the Grizzlies, is there someone you're wanting more or less if you're either of those teams?
I mean, first off, if you're an OG listener, you remember our playoff prediction or our seeding prediction pod a long time ago, where it was the Utah Suns and the Phoenix Spurs.
Yeah.
That we were deciding between they were going to be 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And boy, were we wrong.
Yeah.
Both teams just kicked ass this year, and it was very impressive. Obviously, you don't want to play the Lakers. If I'm the Suns, I especially don't want to play the Lakers.
That's a historic rivalry, by the way, that's between the Lakers and Phoenix.
I would much rather, between the two teams, I think the Suns are more scared of the Lakers than the Jazz are. Just
I'd
because
agree.
you have Gobert, who can go up against Anthony Davis. You have
a bunch of guys that you can toss
Jingles, Royce O'Neal.
LeBron.
You have a bunch of guys you can throw at LeBron.
They're a good team defense as well.
And the Lakers struggle, with perimeter defense at times. So you can tack with Conley and Mitchell, and not saying that the Suns don't have perimeter offensive firepower with, Chris Paul and Devin Booker, but you don't have that interior defensive presence. Mm-hmm. Who are you going to put on Anthony Davis? Because again, they roll out, a big lineup. And so that means you're throwing Jay Crowder or who, but you want Jay Crowder on LeBron, and then you have Mikal Bridges, who's a good defender, but he's undersized when you throw him at LeBron. So there's a lot of, issues matchup-wise if you're the Suns. If you're the Warriors, I would almost want the Warriors if I'm the Suns, just because DeAndre Ayton will feast. Mm-hmm. You have Chris Paul, who's a great defender, one of the best guys you can throw at Steph Curry. Yep. And then the Warriors have no answer for Devin Booker at all.
It's true. You're probably throwing Wiggins at Booker
and
defensively.
And then Booker's you have the first step whenever you want it.
Yep.
He is slower of foot than you are, so you just have the first step whenever you want it.
Yeah, it's funny, if you're a Suns fan, you're praying that the Lakers win this or lose this game, and they turn out to be the 8 seed, play the 1 seed. And if you're the Jazz, you're probably praying that the Lakers win this game, turn to the 7 seed, play the Suns. But I think you hit the nail on the head. The Jazz are less scared of the Lakers than the Suns are. And even if you're a Suns fan, you've seen the Lakers just kill your hopes and dreams too many times. I mean, there's that iconic Kobe game winner against the Suns in the playoffs, and there's just tons of examples of the Lakers killing the hopes and dreams of Suns fans. And so you're going into it scared. You're going into it with a historical fear of the Los Angeles Lakers. The Jazz don't have that as much. And so I do think that the Jazz have the better matchup. It's going to be really, really fun to see what kind of turns out in this next day with these other two games, the Warriors, Lakers, and the Memphis and Spurs. And then we have our last games coming up the days after that, which is already locked in. It's going to be the Pacers versus the Wizards. They're playing for that 8 seed. And then we're going to see who the last game is going to be with the Western Conference.
Yeah, it'll be tons of fun. I'm already a big fan of the play-in tournament. I know a lot of fans and media are a huge fan of the play-in tournament. If I'm guessing it's here to stay, I'm excited to see what tomorrow holds. Tomorrow might be the biggest, again, closest to NBA playoff basketball that we've seen in a long time. I mean, today was a pretty close matchup, but I mean, when you get Lakers, Warriors, LeBron, Steph in a must-win game, that's, pretty damn good.
That's
so
must-see TV right
everyone
there.
tune in because it is must-see TV for sure. That wraps up our podcast today, everybody. Jefferson Reserve, very old, very small batch Kentucky Straight Bourbon joining us today, which has been nothing but a delight.
Yes.
Very fun to have, very fun to talk playing stuff.
Yeah.
Just so,
Great end to a great day for me.
Yeah. Shout out to Mitch. Everyone raise a glass to Mitch. He quit his job and bought a new car. And for that, we will cheers.
Huzzah.